Welcome back to TMG Tonight. This evening's topic is all about HOAs, Homeowner Associations. Please join me in welcoming Patrick Telfer.
Hello.
How's everything going?
Good.
Good. So tell us a little bit about how you got into the industry.
Okay. I've been in the industry about 12 years with asset management, and then I started into the Homeowners Associations about 6 to 7 years ago. The big reason why I got into it was because it's problem solving. You're taking an issue that the community has, and you're bringing a solution, not just a temporary solution, but a permanent solution. You're being more proactive than reactive when it comes to managing the communities. And then I have this internal passion that I like to improve on things. So it's taking somebody's real estate and building it from where it's at now. Where can we take that in 3 to 5 years when it comes to increasing real estate values, improving the communities, getting rid of deferred maintenance, and just improving the overall feel of the community.
Talk to us a little bit about, we hear about board meetings, we hear about committees, we hear about voting, perhaps some of the challenges as a manager if you're at a board meeting, and board members have differences of opinion. So talk to us a little bit about your experiences.
Okay. I'll start from the basis. So like you have articles of incorporation, you have bylaws and CC&Rs. Articles of incorporation are what makes association actual corporation. And then you have your bylaws. Your bylaws dictate how the board is ran, what committees they can have, what the voting procedures are, what positions are available within the community, how many board seats there are. And then just like you were saying, you go into your CC&Rs and that's your use restrictions. That is what homeowners can and cannot do, and that will outline what they can and cannot do. Then you also have your house rules. Your house rules are going to fill the gaps. Your CC&Rs will have the overview, what you can and cannot do on your lot, what sort of process you have to go through to do a modification to your house, which is called an architectural modification. And then any gaps that are in your CC&Rs allows the association to adopt house rules. So as times change, it allows the association to adopt restrictions for new things.
Right. So when you're talking about modifications, so if I wanted to put an addition onto my home, and that's what you're talking about, right? So I'd say I want to add, a big family room onto my home. That's the type of modification that I would need approval for?
Yeah, that's going to be something more of the more extreme side. You also need modification or approvals for painting your home, installing a fence, changing the color of your fence. If you're installing a new garden that you're pouring concrete, something along those lines, typically it's going to cover any exterior modification to your home. You typically will need a approval from the association. And that's in place to make sure the aesthetic appeal stays the same. So you don't have a neighbor down the street with a lime greenhouse.
Right.
So you don't have somebody who decides to pour pink concrete, something along those lines.
Right. So what about violations? I hear that even in our association, and people parking their RVs in their driveway, or again, we talked about their landscaping. So how does that work? So you have violations, right? I get a fine if I'm not within the guidelines. So what are the couple of the most common violations?
Most common violations: leaving trash cans out, not putting them away within a certain time period after the trash is picked up, yard waste being left on the side of the house, an excessive amount of noise, which is causing somebody to lose their reasonable enjoyment of their home.
Okay. Well, now I understand there's also different types of properties that are in associations, right?
Correct.
We have single family homes and townhomes, and so talk to us a little bit about how those differ when you talk about associations.
Okay. So a planned or a PUD typically is the homeowner owns the lot. They own the land that the home is sitting on. And typically in those type of communities, they're going to be responsible for the exterior stucco, painting, exterior maintenance, and then also everything on the inside. A townhome PUD, they own the land, but most of the time they're going to be connected to another building. So it's going to be sort of a duplex. There's going to be multiple units attached to the same building, where sometimes 2, 3, up to 5. And then when you get down to a condominium is you own the airspace inside of the unit. So you own, once you go in your front door, anything inside you own, but up until the drywall. And then from the drywall to the studs is going to be HOA responsibility, and that's a common area. So HOA is typically responsible for all the maintenance, the plumbing, things along those lines that would be inside of the wall.
And then I hear we have commercial associations too. So businesses can be in there, office buildings, all of that sort of thing.
Yep.
Is that right?
Yep, and then you'll typically, that would be, a lot of times you'll have like mixed use. You'll have condos up top and you have commercial on the bottom floor.
Right.
So at least within our industry, I mean, we'll be managing not just the condos, but we're also managing the storefronts that are down below. And if you have restaurants, you have grease traps, there's a lot that can go into those.
Right. Right. So what are the differences between your duties being the manager and the board's duties being the board and the board members?
Okay. Most board members in homeowner associations are volunteers. I mean, they don't get paid for this. They have daytime jobs. They're working 9 to 5. They're working 40 hours a week, sometimes more. So the association hires a management company. What our job is to be the managing agent for the community. We do the day-to-day operations. We take any phone calls that come in from homeowners, whether it's complaints, asking for maintenance to be done, reports of emergencies, and we also manage the maintenance and repairs for the community. So anytime there's a major project, the community needs to be painted, or fences need to be replaced, or streets need to be repaved. We're that point of contact who's going out to vendors to get bids and bring it back to the board for them to review and approval. We're basically like a consultant. We bring the people together that the board needs to make an intelligent business decision for the better of the community.
So the board makes most of the decisions, except for maybe the day-to-day decisions that are already agreed upon.
Yep. I mean, so it's typically within a contract, there'll be a certain amount that management can spend within the association's budget. So if we're talking about irrigation breaks, minor maintenance, plank of wood fell off a fence, those things that will make those decisions on day-to-day to make sure the corporation is continuing to run. But any of the signing of contracts, the major business decisions, those are all handled by the board and approved by the board.
Right. And what about budgets? Do you do budgets for
Yep.
for your boards, right? What does that process look like?
I have a financial background, so I actually enjoy doing the budgets when they come through. I mean, it's what we'll do is we'll take what the association's expenses are. We'll compare them to the last 3 to 5 years. We'll look at what planned projects are coming up for the following year, what we expect those to cost, and then we'll sit and we'll draft a budget for everybody, for the association. I mean, from water, if there's going to be water increases in electricity, any contract changes, every year we'll follow up with contracted vendors, landscapers, people who are doing preventative maintenance for the community, make sure they're not going to have any increases. And once you do all that due diligence, you make sure you have the most accurate budget as you can.
Right. So in your position, and you're at a board meeting, you don't run the board meetings, right? The board members run, or the president runs the board meeting?
Yep. The chair or the president would be running the board meeting, and we would be there to answer questions, guidance, whether it's guidance on RCW laws in Washington, or Oregon laws, things along those lines.
Right. So how is it working in COVID? Because, not a lot of people are getting together. How is that working? How are you doing your board meetings?
It was, in the beginning, it was a little confusing trying to develop a process that we could still meet and have our regular board meetings so the association can continue to do business. But with today's age, we have virtual meetings, whether it's GoToMeeting, Zoom, something along those lines, it's actually become pretty easy. I would say most of my associations have embraced using virtual meetings, and even after COVID and we get done with the pandemic, want to continue to use that moving forward.
And with those meetings, homeowners can call in or at least hear what's going on at the board meeting. Is that how it's set up?
Yeah, they can come in virtually, so they can see all the board members who are in attendance, or they have the choice to call in. Right. We're seeing an increase in homeowners attending the meetings because they can just do it from their couch. They don't have to drive somewhere to a meeting hall or go to the clubhouse, so it's been beneficial.
Right. So what do you think makes AMS different from other management companies now that you've been working for AMS for a number of years? What do you think is different from other management companies?
AMS has a lot of structure. There's a lot of people behind the scenes I might be the tip of the spear, but I have a whole team of people behind me who support me, who support the homeowners who call in, which allows me to have time to get things taken care of. That support structure is the biggest aspect that allows me to be successful with my boards. I have worked for other management companies in California, and that support structure was not there. And that was difficult to manage communities when you don't have that. You are working 68 hours a week.
That's a lot of hours.
It's a lot of hours.
Yes.
It's a lot of hours because you don't have that support. And it's really the administration staff, the people who are on the front line, who are answering the phone calls, we're doing the mailings. They really do give a lot of benefit for the managers.
Well, association management, there's a lot of details that go into that, and there's a lot of emails, there's a lot of phone calls, right? And you can't be everywhere at once, and you can't talk to everybody at once, and so I'm sure having that support is really helpful.
And while you're going to that, the other big aspect is being ahead of the technology. I feel that TMG has. It goes from our softwares, internal softwares, how all our softwares work together. That really does help. It allows us to work remotely. Whether I'm on a property inspection, I can do violations from there through an app. I don't have to make a list and take pictures and go back to the office, then type them all up. You put it in the app, press a button, it automatically generates it, it gets sent out. So those type of time-saving things really do allow a manager to concentrate on what the association really needs, is managing projects and managing their capital improvements, things along those lines.
Well, one thing I noticed that AMS is even a different title than most association managers.
Correct.
Right? And so, we're association business managers because we believe that we manage a business. And unlike other companies, we're strong on the financial aspect of that too.
Correct.
So,
No.
So let me ask you this: what now that we've talked about a lot of the things that you do as a manager, what advice would you give to someone that was considering a career path in association management?
You have to have a desire to want to help people and want to have customer service. You have to be able to take people's pain and be able to not take it personally and be able to turn it around and make that person happy. Somebody's going to call you, somebody's going to be upset, you're going to get upset emails, which is, we're working with somebody's retirement. We're working with their real estate. This can be somebody's retirement where they're planning
home,
it. And they're home.
They come home
So
every day.
things happen, they are emotional. You have to be able to take that with a grain of salt, still give them customer service, not take it home, and be able to still execute and give them whatever service that needs to be done. That is the biggest, most positive aspect a new manager could have for somebody getting into this industry, is understanding that yes, we're managing a business, but we are serving our clients customer service.
Right.
We are a customer service based company.
Well, so you need to be detailed. You need to have lots of customer service. You need to have a little bit of a thick skin.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
All right. So on that note, we are going to go to commercial break. We'll be right back.
Here at AMS, we've been successfully managing your communities for over 30 years, and in that time, we've seen pretty much everything.
No sidewalk chalk.
At AMS, we know association management. It's literally in our name. Let us handle the pains, management, financials, and so much more for your association community. Contact us today to get started.
Really? 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 Hi. Yeah.
Homeworks. Installs, repairs, routine improvement. We keep your home working.
Welcome back to TMG Tonight. This evening's topic is all about HOAs. And we have just spoken with Patrick Telfer from AMS, and we're going to be joined by Steve Wehrman, who is a retired respiratory therapist, and he is also the president of Clear Meadows Community Association. Steve has lots of community involvement, is a great health advocate, and he's going to share his experiences with how he's involved in Clark County, the community, and his responsibilities as a board member. So please join me in welcoming Steve Wehrman. Hello, Steve.
Hi, I'm good. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Well, we can't shake hands, right?
Right.
And we're 6 feet apart, so I'll just say thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Great
So-
opportunity.
Oh, good. Good. So you're retired, sort of. I hear you have another profession, and we'll get to that in a moment. But let's talk about the good things that you're doing here in Clark County, your advocacy, and some of your other organizations that you started, like Breathe Strong Washington.
Oh yeah, well, Breathe Strong is a little nonprofit that's designed to help people that have lung disease that can't get to services, to reach out to them. And so we do Better Breathers Clubs at Vancouver Clinic and for Kaiser. People come in, but now with COVID, it's been a lot harder. Trying to do things from a distance is much harder. I'm also a state captain with the COPD Foundation, which is national, and that's advocacy. So I advocate with politicians and local leaders to get services and like telehealth.
Okay.
We're advocating for
familiar with
telehealth
that.
for Medicare patients right now, that kind of thing, and for more rehab and just to get more services and more things out to people to help them.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, just in the age of COVID, lung health is of utmost importance, and you being a respiratory therapist.
My timing was right.
So you've been on the Clear Meadows board for a little over 4 years, right? And you've been president for how long?
About 6 months.
About 6 months.
And I was vice president before that, and just board member, when I started.
So when you came up through the chairs, so to
That's
speak.
how you do it, right?
Okay. And so, what prompted you to get involved in the association?
Well, to be honest, the first time I did it was because I was afraid of them. I'd never lived with an HOA, and I'd heard they were always after you. So I thought, if I get on the board, that'll help protect me from the board, right?
Okay.
And then I got interested in it,
Right.
and my community, and I've done it several times. This is my third time of being a board member at a HOA.
Okay.
And initially, I just came because I just moved in the neighborhood. I wanted to meet people, find out what was going on, right? That's how I started.
Right. And you started in Hawaii, is that right?
I did,
Being
yes.
a board member?
Yeah,
Yes.
a lot of condos there, a lot of townhouses, a lot of
Right.
opportunity to be a board
Oh,
member.
I bet.
Yeah,
I bet.
yeah. So when I got here and I went to the board, everything seemed good, but I did notice that the park wasn't very nice. It just seemed like something could be done about that. So I think, if you're interested in being on a board, showing up is number one. But number two is bringing a problem. And I don't mean like bringing an axe to grind. Bring a problem with a solution. Come up and say, hey, I got this thing. So what I did was I called the city and I adopted Clear Meadows Park.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, because my idea was if I adopted the park, the city would be more likely to take care of it because there would be an advocate for the park. And I went to the board and said, I'm just here. I just moved here and I want to get involved and I'm going to do something for the park. And they go, wow, that's great. And so the next thing you know, I was invited to be on the board because I didn't bring an axe to grind. I didn't yell at him. I said, I think we have a problem, but I'm working on a solution. Let's work together on it.
Right.
And then, everything kind of follows from that, right?
So with all your experience on boards, what do you think makes a board successful as a group?
Okay, good point. And Patrick is helping me with this. We have a new board coming in. The first thing to do is train and orient the board.
Yep.
Get everybody on the same page. Because, usually people bring in one new person at a time and they learn by trial and error. Better have an organizational meeting, get everybody on the same page, talk about the goals, get people to more or less agree, provide training, because there's things you can and can't say,
That is
and
true.
things you should and shouldn't do. The other thing is the board's ultimate first responsibility is what's called fiduciary. Any board, whether you're on a lung association or a homeowners association, it means that you're responsible for managing your members' money well, ethically, and doing a good job
And everybody
too.
wants that.
Yes, but that's your first responsibility. All board members need to know that that's the first reason you have to manage the association's money well. That's what you owe to the owners or the members, right? And then you can move on to the other issues, right? And usually people that get on boards have something they want to change or make better.
Or they have one issue and they're not looking at all of the things, right? They're looking at just that one isolated situation.
Right. So we want to kind of give them the history of what's going on, how we got to where we are, what our goals are. And then I like to get buy-in. So like I'm setting goals for my group.
Yep.
We want to get that kind of where it's a non-threatening meeting and get people to kind of buy in our goals for this year and anybody, get them to submit their ideas, and then, and then start systematically working on them. Right.
So have you seen where board members come in, maybe you have a couple new board members and they actually haven't read all of the documents? Is that because I've seen that happen even with, my association, the one that I live in, and it's they don't really understand the full scope. And so talk to us about the training that you're doing. I think that's very interesting.
Well, it's not something I could do by myself, really. I mean, I guess I kind of could, but it's better to have Patrick, right? It's your management association that comes in. So then, it's sort of like parents. If you try to teach your kids, maybe they push back when the teacher teaches them.
Oh, it's different.
See,
It's
it's different.
Analogy.
I'm just a community member on the board, and I'm asking Patrick to help us,
right?
Even though we're working together,
right?
We have an agenda, right? Just to get everybody on the same page, because you can't really, if you don't work as a team, it's like a rowboat. If everybody's rowing in different directions, it's not going to work, right? Plus, they listen to him. I'm just a neighbor. Even though I'm the president, I'm just a neighbor. But he's the guy who knows stuff, and he's got resources. And so he's bringing in the training resources. And so, quite frankly, I could invent that, but I don't have to, because my management company takes care of that for me.
Well, that's great.
So it's one of the big things he does, is he helps train people and educate my board members.
So what do you think, the time on your board that you've been president to, what do you think the biggest challenge has been?
Well, right now it's been COVID, but we with Patrick's help, we got over that. And in fact, we now have more people coming to our board meetings than we did before.
You mentioned that.
No, it's true. It's really great. It's fantastic. Yeah, the biggest challenge, of course, is angry community members and leaves. The thing that everybody here gets mad about is leaves. People literally, they're calling the police on each other and
about leaves.
Always about leaves. People blowing leaves into each other's yards.
Right.
And so, we have a lot of leaves here.
We do.
This year, I'm going to try to work on that. Yep. I tried before, but I was a junior member, and the board was like, nah,
right.
People should take care of their own leaves. And I'm like, well, it's kind of a problem, especially if people get so angry, right? So, maybe we can do something about that. Right.
Well, it's interesting that in a lot of subdivisions, there are a lot of trees. There truly are. I've seen that where the road is entirely covered. So I'm sure people are.
And the other thing related to trees is sidewalks. And so Patrick and I have been really working on the community, fixing sidewalks. Because, there's community sidewalks and then there's your sidewalk. Yes. So I'm responsible for some of the sidewalks in Clear Meadows, and you're responsible for yours. So we got a guy who fixes them so it's not a tripping hazard because of the tree roots, right? But then how do we get the owners to do that?
Oh.
So that's one of our big projects this year. One of the things we did was we got the guy to give him a good deal, because we gave him our business. Now he's willing to give our members a better deal for buying in bulk, so to speak, right? So boards can do a lot of things for their community besides just the appearance and the money, like safety. We're working on traffic mitigation. We want people to drive slower. So we've got a couple board members interested, and the guy got slowed down because of the COVID, but we've got that, that cart that has the speed limit thing. And anyway, we got the city ready to work with us. So it's great when something, because look, people argue about a lot of stuff, so you have to find what people believe in common.
Right.
If you want them to work together, right? Focus on issues that people all agree is a problem. And that has worked well for me.
Do you think that, they talk about what the benefits of an HOA,
Mm-hmm.
and so, there's a lot of people, there's a lot of pros and cons in people's minds about that. And what do you think about, about the value of your residence or your home, if it's an HOA and if it's not? And I know that you've recently acquired your real estate license too. So what do you think about the pros and the cons of that?
Well, first of all, George Mason University did a study on it.
Oh, I didn't know that.
They're a serious university. About 5 to 6% increased value. 2 comparable homes, one in an HOA, one outside. But it's a little more than that. When I take a client to see a place, you don't know the neighbors, right? But you know how they keep their house. The first thing everybody looks at is the neighborhood. What does it look like? What do the neighbors' houses look like? When you come into a well-managed property, it looks good. So for me, it's a lot easier to help someone find a home where there's an HOA, because it looks nice when we drive in, instead of looking like doggy and I don't know if I want to live next to that guy. Right. So there's a little bit more than just the proof that homes are worth more. It's also that it's easier to buy and sell your home when there's an HOA, except, of course, if there's problems, right? So how well managed is the HOA? If they've been doing their job well, it's a real asset to the community. If they haven't, then, you know,
they can get a reputation too.
yeah, and then you could end up with a special assessment.
Yeah,
If your board
because-
hasn't been managing the money
Right.
right, you end up with a special assessment, and nobody wants that.
Right.
So it's good to do your research. If you're going to buy a home where there's an HOA, you want a good HOA.
You know, I've not heard about that study, that there is like, did you say 5 to 6%?
Yes.
Increase in
Yeah.
home values. I mean, I think that's something that homeowners should know, because people talk about it, but I don't know that they've actually ever said they've actually been able to quantify it like that.
No, it's
So,
true.
Yeah.
I mean, it kind of makes sense though, right?
Right,
Because you have
it
a little
does,
bit
absolutely.
of, we focus on people's fronts, like your backyard's yours,
Right.
right? Come on, I don't want to go in your backyard. That should be your sanctuary. But your front is what shows. That's the curb
Everybody
appeal.
drives by it every day.
Right, and so that's what makes it nice when you drive home. Makes you feel happy that you're coming
Right,
home, or
right.
grouchy,
Right.
right? And it's also like when people buy places, curb appeal is really essential.
Right.
So it makes a huge difference. Yeah.
Well, now that you have your real estate license, and so you're even more in tune, I would imagine, with what the market is, with the availability of property, and
Right.
and how HOAs affect that.
Yeah, and I go out and I show people houses. And a lot of my clients are regular people. They're not rich. And they go and they see a house that's an affordable house. And then they start looking around going, oh, I mean, like, oh, look at that over there. Then I show them a place like Clear Meadows, or around, you know, I live in Fisher's Landing, a lot of HOAs there. And you can just see them go, when they drive into the neighborhood, you know? So, but it's true that in an HOA, like if you're buying a place where I live, you have to pay attention. And that's one thing a realtor's supposed to do for you. You can't rent your house in Clear Meadows.
Oh, they have a restriction.
They have a
on
restriction.
rentals.
So
Okay.
those things are really important for happiness, right? Is to
Right.
find the HOA that has rules that you agree with and
Right.
things like that. Because you won't be able to fight something like that. Yeah.
So rental restrictions, we didn't touch on that, Patrick,
No.
when we talked a little bit earlier. And have you seen where there's been situations where somebody potentially didn't know that there wasn't a rental restriction?
Yes, I have.
Yeah.
Yep, I have.
How did that turn out?
They were not very happy. And some associations will have you, when you buy in, you can't rent for 2 or 3 years. But there was a recent situation that I dealt with, and she bought into the community thinking that she was going to immediately be able to rent. And she was not able to, and she wasn't very pleased with that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I would say the realtor didn't necessarily, I don't know what the realtor did, but that's one of your jobs. But also as an owner, if you're going to buy a place, you have the right to look at all of that.
And you
can
get all that before closing, don't
Of
you?
course, you can even
Yes.
back out if you don't.
Right.
Anyway, so it's really important to do that, to do
Right.
that part and to look at the HOA. But then because I have experience, I look at the HOA and what kind of job they're doing, right? So especially the reserves. So the reserves are the funds that have been set aside to pay for future problems. And it's all planned out. We do a reserve study every year by law. And my reserve is over 100% funded.
Wow.
So when the city came and told us that the pocket park was really a bioswale, and we had to put $25,000 into water, it's to make our water clean.
Right.
We were like, great, what? We don't even
you have
know.
to pay for that?
We had the money. Someone else might have had a special assessment. So it's good to do your due diligence and look at your homeowners association.
And so can you elaborate a little bit more on reserve studies? Perhaps some
Mm-hmm.
of our audience is not familiar with them.
Well, what we're looking at is the long-term maintenance of the property, the whole property, Clear Meadows, 400 homes, acres of land, right? And what the common element, which is our responsibility as opposed to your home itself. So the reserve study is done by a specialist, not by us.
So that's a third party
It's a licensed
contractor.
professional, because and I went around with the guy. So a good board maybe goes with them when they do the reserve study. And they look at it and they say, well, who owns this street? Because in Clear Meadows, there's private roads owned by the association and city streets. And then we would have to maintain the private roads.
So you have to plan ahead and start budgeting
Right,
to fund
right.
those.
And then you say, well, how long will this last? 10 years? Okay, so in 10 years, we need to replace this. How much will we need to set aside? So the reserve tries to set aside the money to take care of those kind of projects. And if you have a little extra set aside, you deal with unexpected problems.
Right.
A big thing for us is our fence. And our fence is beautiful. So you can tell
And there's
when
a lot of it. I've
and
been
you can
by
tell when you
Clear
get
Meadows.
there, because our fence looks good and the next one doesn't look as good. You know,
Right.
I'm really proud of that fence. What did that fence cost?
Oh, it's coming up in 3 years to be restained,
It's
and
a
it's
lot of
somewhere
money.
around I was close to $200,000 just to do the staining and repair on it.
It's expensive.
Oh my goodness.
It's going to be a decent size.
Fixing
project
your
for that.
sidewalks could be $5,000 or $6,000, but we have the money set aside, and my fees are very, very low, because if you manage the money well, right, then you've been doing it carefully over time. You don't have to hit people with a big
Special assessment
or a big like we're
increase.
doubling the fees or
Right.
something. So.
Right.
So that's a product of the people in the community, like the people on the board and the management company working together. That's what really makes it work. Yeah.
You know, I'm somewhat familiar with reserve studies, and you know, to have a reserve study that's at 100% funded or even slightly more, a lot of associations have a very difficult time in doing that.
Yeah, this is the first one I've been on that has been fully
is it?
funded.
Okay.
I attribute that to the hard work of people over time.
Right.
Yeah, because we've made that our goal. So that's a goal of our board, no matter what, is to keep. And an owner came to me recently and said, "Why don't you cut the maintenance fee if you're overfunded?" And I go, "Well, we're not overfunded, because things happen." The man who drove through some guy stole a car and got in an accident and drove through a fence and our monument, the big
Oh my
thing that
goodness.
says Clear Meadows, cost $50,000 to fix
Oh
it.
my gosh.
But we're insured. Maybe that's because of Patrick. Right? As though all we had to pay was the deductible, which was $1,000, but we had the money. So every step of the way, working like this, working as a partnership, I mean, not a lot of owners realize how we protected them,
Right.
right? But, you know, leadership and governance comes from 5 or 10% of people all the time.
You know, it's interesting that you made the comment about somebody driving through the monument sign. And, you know, I think a lot of associations that are planned unit developments like Clear Meadows, they have monuments, but I believe that, you know, people have always commented, "Oh, we don't really need that insurance. Whatever's going to happen to our sign, nothing's going to ever happen to it. It's just going to get old. We're going to have to replace it, and that wouldn't be covered." So you don't very often hear about something like that happening.
Well, and you know that big wind we had?
Oh, yes,
It
yes.
took down a big tree in our pocket park, and we had that fixed so fast.
Yep. I think we had it cut up and taken out within a couple days.
So now, could I have done that? No, I called Patrick.
Right.
He knew somebody, had the emergency crew out there, and then because we have long-term relationships with our vendors, like our landscaping company, they were out there right away to fix the rest of it, you know, so.
So what advice would you give to someone that has never been on a board before and they're in an association, and you know the notice comes out to say, hey, you know, we're looking for people that are interested in participating. You know, what advice would you give them about being on the board, or perhaps even running for the board?
Yeah, well, the first step is really simple. It's just to show up. It's politics. I mean, you have to be elected. I hate to say the word politics right now, but what I mean is the people have to know who you are.
Right.
People will apply to be on the board, and if you don't know them, like you've never seen them, you're less likely to vote for them, right? So the first thing is to show up, because a lot of people don't. So if you show up, and like I said, the next thing is to bring something that you're interested in. Some people come and they go, "I want to be on the board," and they start like yelling at the board. Like, "I'm angry because you," that's not necessarily, I want someone who comes in with a problem and a solution. Like, I got this idea about how we could do something better. Those are people that are really great to be on boards. And if you don't get elected the first time, go on a committee. Boards always have committees. We always need people. It's a great way to get involved. Now with my little park thing, I have some other volunteers. And so I met some more of my neighbors and we have fun. We're going to probably plant daffodils this year or something, you know.
Right.
It just is a great way to meet your neighbors, which sounds old fashioned, but I'm old fashioned. Right. So knowing your neighbors and helping them out, that's kind of
How it should be.
That's a good life, right?
It is a good life.
Yeah.
And so so did you have to campaign, like when you ran for the
No.
board initially? Oh, okay.
No, I did it, like I said, I campaigned by showing up, by
Okay.
getting involved. I adopted the park. I said, "Hey, I'll volunteer to help work on this," you know, and I talked to a few board members outside of the meetings and stuff, and then they invited me. I had to get elected, but at that time they just needed people,
Right.
We just had an election, and we had more people run than positions.
Oh my goodness.
Is that
that's
fantastic,
unusual.
right?
That's unusual.
Yeah,
People
and they
wanna get
weren't people
involved.
that were angry. They were people who said, "Well, my kid just graduated from high school. I want to get involved in the community." They were all like good people. I felt bad about turning a person down, right? Because
Committees are, to your point, committees are a great way though to actually get involved too. And they're the ones that do all that research before making a recommendation to the board, right?
Oh, absolutely. They do all the hard work. And then my thing is, why not get more people involved? So don't sit in that position for 10 years.
Right.
Like step down, groom. I'm trying to groom the next generation of people to serve on the board. And it would be better if we had more new members and they would spend a couple of years on the board, and then, that would be great. Wouldn't it be great if you had too many presidents?
Right. You have a rotation.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the best way is to look at your position as a teaching position. You're training the next person to be president. And then that way you don't hang on to it, but you're still there in the community as a resource. And you can go back and do it again. I was president of the Hawaii Society for Respiratory Care 4 times, but not in a row, right?
Right.
I made sure that somebody else got the job, and then when they called me again, I would come back. It's really important to build your board. Think of your board as part of your community, not separate from it.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and I think being able to have that kind of rotation too allows for new ideas. People of just different perspectives. Because neighborhoods are always changing. People are buying and selling. Right. Neighborhoods are always changing.
And right now, very much so. Like Clear Meadows is 25 years old. Most of the original owners, their kids are graduating from high school, going to college. People are starting to. New families are moving in with young kids again, which hasn't happened in 10 or 15 years. So it's great. Right. That's wonderful.
So what do you have any advice for board members that are already board members and maybe they're having some challenges on their boards? Maybe they don't have the projects, the problems and the solutions kind of going on. Do you have any advice for those board members that are right there? They're listening to you and you're going, I wish he was on my board.
Right. And so when I first started on the Clear Meadows board, the first thing I did after saying, I want to get involved and I have this project, was to shut up and listen. Right. And wait. Because if you're new, like people come in and go, I think we should do this. Well, just wait and listen, okay? And get the lay of the land, right? So then maybe what I found was there was another board member, very like-minded, young guy, works in healthcare. We started talking as neighbors. We started working on stuff. So at first, some of the old guard on the board, they didn't want to listen to me. I'm new.
What does he know?
He's new, and no one's going to look at your resume and go, "Oh, you know a lot." You have to show. So I kind of laid low and was helpful, right? Because look, if you got to get along with people in your community, so you can't bring your personal. Nope. Real estate's that way too. It's not red or blue. I'm trying to help you find healthcare. It's not red or blue. I'm trying to help you. So you got to let all that go, and then work for the community. Just like, I don't know, you're putting a different hat on. Right. It's hard at first. People might even be mean to you on the board, right? They might be kind of like, well, you're new, you don't know.
Is that sort of like high school?
Yes, people are people. But so what I try to do is find like-minded people that have similar, either personally they're similar, or maybe they have similar goals.
Or similar interests, yeah.
And the other people, I talk to them, I listen. So if somebody's angry, listen to them. Let them blow off some steam. Try to find some way to connect or relate to that person. Leaves. Everybody can relate to leaves. In other words, you're new on the board and you want to make some progress. Be a good neighbor. I brought home-baked cookies to the board meetings, right? I mean, it doesn't sound like much, but when you're new, you should try to fit in and be a member of the team. Like later on, you could be a star if you want to, but kind of focus on that and focus on ways of relating to other people instead of ways of differing for other people. So like I always say, you could be known by your passion for what you love or your passion for what you hate. Why not the passion for what you love? And if you'll always find other neighbors that love the community and have that same, seek those people out. And then you'll be happy. You'll do well on your board.
Well, that is great advice. And thank you to Steve Wehrman, President of Clear Meadows Community Association, and Patrick Telfer, Association Business Manager for AMS. And thank you for joining us this evening.